So Errol Spence is going to be fighting UGAS soon. This is a fight that I've been looking forward to, and I think it's apart from Terence Crawford fighting Errol Spence, this is one of the best fights that could potentially happen in the welterweight division. Now, historically, the welterweight division has been one of the best divisions to follow in boxing. Consistently, it's always had the best fighters in it. From the 80s with the Sugar Ray Leonards of the world to the 90s when you had fighters like Pernell Whitaker, Oscar De La Hoya, to the 2000s when you had fighters like just like the Felix Trinidads of the world, to the modern era where you got the Floyd Mayweathers, and now you got the Terence Crawfords. Historically, the welterweight division has always been one of the best divisions to follow in boxing. But despite the fact that it's been a good era for welterweights recently with the Sean Porters, Keith Thurmans, Errol Spences, Terence Crawfords, it feels a bit hollow. I feel like the division is a little bit hollow. There doesn't seem to be a lot going on, even though there is good potential fights out there with the likes of like the Kell Brooks of the world and the Keith Thurmans and such. It just feels a little bit hollow, like there could be more happening. And one of the things that could be happening is obviously Errol Spence fighting Terence Crawford, and that fight still hasn't happened yet. But I still think this is a good fight, and the reason why Errol Spence is taking this fight is because he does want to fight. He does want to fight Terence Crawford next, and if he holds 3 of the 4 belts from the major sanctioning bodies, the IBF, the WBC, and the WBA, then in terms of negotiations, he's going to have a lot more leverage than Terence Crawford. Now, I don't think Errol Spence is that much of a bigger star than Terence Crawford like he thinks he is. He's not as big as he's making himself out to be. Like, if you look at their pay-per-view numbers, it's comparable. Terence Crawford and Errol Spence have comparable numbers. The following that Errol Spence has in boxing, in terms of like his hometown of Texas, very similar to the following that Terence Crawford has in Omaha, Nebraska. Now, don't get it twisted, Texas is obviously way bigger than Omaha, Nebraska. To be honest with you, I think it's fair to say that I think Errol Spence is technically a bigger star than Crawford, but I don't think he's that much bigger. He's not like 10 times the star that Crawford is. That's ridiculous. He's not on that level. With Terence Crawford, he seems like a fighter that's for the hardcore fans. With Errol Spence, he seems closer to the casual market because he has fought fighters that are a lot more marketable, like the likes of a Kell Brook and other fighters like that. And he was going to fight Pacquiao as well. So from that perspective, you can see the reason why he's fighting UGAS is because he wants to win that 3rd belt. UGAS is coming off a very big winner over Pacquiao that retired, and Pacquiao was the biggest name in that division apart from Floyd Mayweather, but obviously Floyd Mayweather retired, and he basically wants to take. And obviously he was going to originally fight Pacquiao, but then obviously he had a retina injury, so that fight wasn't going to happen. So what he's trying to do is trying to get all the shine off UGAS, get the belt, and then he has 3 belts. So when he goes into the negotiation tables for a potential Terence Crawford fight, he has more leverage. This is what all this fight is about, leverage. So from that perspective, who do I think is going to win this fight? I think there's a very strong case that unless I don't know if Errol Spence is the same since his car crash. Since that car crash has happened, he seems to be more vulnerable than ever. Like he's getting retina injuries. He never had that in the past, and this is a young fighter. This guy is not that old, yet he's getting retina injuries and all these types of injuries now that he's not had before. And obviously he just seems a bit more vulnerable than he did before, like since that car crash. And even before the car crash, there was a lapse in his discipline and his motivation, and like he was clubbing a lot more. Now, if that's the case, I think this is the best opportunity for UGAS to win. Obviously UGAS is coming off a very big win over Pacquiao, and on top of that, like there's in his previous fights, he was on a 7-8 fight win streak, and on top of that, he was very active. On top of that, like he had a fight against Sean Porter, and a lot of people thought he won that fight. So he had an active year where he had like 3-4 fights in 1 year. So from that perspective, he's been a lot more active than Errol Spence. he doesn't have injuries. He's coming off the biggest win of his career, and he's going to fight one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world, presumably. I don't think Errol Spence is one of the best pound for pound. He is one of the best, but I don't think he's top 5. Like, I've seen it on the Ring magazine that he's top 5. I don't think he's top 5. I think he's top 10, maybe 11, but he's not top 5 in my opinion. I think there's just too many other fighters that deserve that title, but that's a conversation for a different day. My point is this: I think there's a very good chance that UGAS can win this, but if Errol Spence is anything close to what he was before the car crash, and he seems like he's been very disciplined, I think he should beat UGAS. He should beat UGAS quite unanimously. But it seems like UGAS has got the bit between the teeth, and he looks like he really wants to fight and win this fight. So yeah, from that perspective, I just think that the time has come for if UGAS grabs the moment and captures the moment and really goes for it and fights out of his skin, I think he can beat Errol Spence. But at the same time, I think it's fair to put Errol Spence as the favourite in this fight, because in his last fight against Danny Garcia, even though that was before the retina injury, he did look phenomenal. For a fighter coming out of a car crash, he didn't look quite the same, but he did look phenomenal, and he completely whitewashed Danny Garcia, who's a top welterweight contender. He's a 2-time champion in his own right. So yeah, from that perspective, I think Errol Spence should win this fight, but I would not be surprised if UGAS fights out of his skin and beats him, because of the fact that Errol Spence just looks a lot more vulnerable since the car crash, and he doesn't look like himself as much. To be fair though, I've been looking at the weigh-in and just the training, and it seems like Errol Spence is really dialed in and training really hard, but so is UGAS. So I think this is a very good fight. This is a very tantalizing matchup. It's almost like a trade fight. It's a fight that a lot of casuals don't really care about, but the hardcores will absolutely love this fight. So yeah, that's just my perspective. Tell me your perspective. What's your opinion about this fight? Who do you think's going to win? I think I'm going to go via Errol Spence with a decision. I don't think he's going to knock UGAS out. UGAS is a tough guy, but I would not be surprised if UGAS pulls off the upset, because he's got the ability to do so, and he's on a bit of a tear right now, let's be real. So yeah, that's just my opinion. Tell me your opinion, and like and subscribe to the channel. I've got a lot more content coming your way. Peace out.